to my YouTube channel. So in today's case, I will be covering a case that was suggested to me by someone, a subscriber here on the channel. Before we get into today's video, I do want to apologise for any background noise. I've come to realise there's just nothing I can do about it, you know. If you do live with other people or you film in a room that's next to a road, there's just, all I can do is apologise, so I'm sorry for that. Also, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to this channel and hit the bell notification button to get notified on any uploads that I do upload on this channel. So, without further ado, let's just get straight into today's case. So this is the case about a famous Scottish serial killer called Peter Manuel. Peter Manuel was born to Scottish parents in New York City. The family moved to Detroit, Michigan before migrating back to Scotland in 1932. This time to Berkshire, Lanarkshire. I've never heard of that place, but anyway. During his childhood, Manuel was bullied. By the age of 10, he was known to the local police as a petty thief. At the age of 16, he committed a string of sexual attacks that resulted in his serving 9 years in Peterhead Prison. In 1955, he successfully conducted his own defence on a rape charge at Airdrie Sheriff Court. Manuel was convicted in 1958 of the murders of 7 people. One case against him was thrown out of court. Another committed in England was attributed to him. Anne Newlands, who was 17 on 2nd of January 1956, was stalked at the now removed East Kilbride Golf Course in the looking for a murder weapon and blood-stained clothing, but the weapon was in another stretch of water further south. It was established that the level of petrol in Watt's car had not fallen during his alleged overnight drive, so the police questioned petrol stations along the route to see if he had refueled, and even speculated that he might have had a secret stash of petrol, and searched the route for it. William Watt remained the main suspect until the Smart family murder just a few miles away, when the police realised that there was a serial killer on the loose. At Manuel's trial, the defence argued that Watt had committed these murders. The legal system could have come close to a miscarriage of justice in Watt's case, who would very likely have been hanged if convicted, and the was not initially connected to Manuel. Peter, who was 45, and Doris, who was 42, and Michael Smart, 10 years old. The Smarts were shot dead in their Goddesden home in the early hours of January the 1st, 1958. After the murders, Manuel stayed in the household for nearly a week, eating leftovers from their household and feeding the family cat, before stealing some brand new banknotes that Peter Smart had kept for a holiday and taking the family car and dumping it nearby. Manuel gave a lift in this car to a police officer investigating Isabel Cook's disappearance, even telling him that he felt that the police were not looking in the right places. Although many police officers were familiar with Manuel, suspecting him of carrying out these murders, they were unable to prove his guilt until shortly after they had searched the Smarts' residence and retracted their movements in the hours before their murder. When 7 £5 banknotes Peter Smart was known to have withdrawn from his bank on New Year's Eve were found to be missing from his residence, and Manuel had been discovered to be using the same banknotes to pay for drinks in several East End Glasgow pubs. After the police arrested his father, oh god, sorry about that guys, it just has to happen in every video, doesn't it? After the police arrested his father, he confessed to 8 of these murders.